let me answer this. Let me answer the second question. So yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, different divisions have different experience.
I'm not sure what you said.
Oops. All right. Okay, good. It's very direct. You know. Sorry, I forgot the first question. But anyway, the second one. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the second one is that yeah, different divisions have different experiences, and neurology is an interesting one actually, because FDA, the Clin Pharm office actually went in length to figure out that even with the PK changes, there are significant efficacy, influence, depending upon the profile of a drug, whether there is a time lag, or whether, they have now instituted something called like partial AUCs, to make sure that the profile looks the same. I mean, because and because the profile makes a difference. I mean, neurology is one good example. Pain is another example, because a lot of the times, there are other divisions who approve drugs which are, for example, chronically used, where the profile probably doesn't mean anything. As long as you get to a nice similar trough levels or AUC, you are okay probably in chronically. I mean, compared to an IR versus an ER probably formulation, But I personally has not approved a formulation where the ER profile looks very different and there was a drug holiday. And basically, I mean, the formulation was, they needed to go back and redo the whole thing again. Now, the first question on the biosimilar, I know you want to probably say something, but the 505(b)(2) with the biologics is kind of like the biosimilar pathway that FDA has opened up now. And obviously, there is a lot more involvement in that. That's not an easy pathway. You need still immunogenicity study, clinical study, and that's a much more involved situation with a much more CMC data. I have a lot of experience on the biosimilars actually, both from the FDA and at PAREXEL. We do a lot of biosimilar work. But that's an interesting path, and that pathway is evolving and developing. 5 years down the road, I think it will become a lot more streamlined in terms of at least the data requirements. But with generics also, it took a long time to get to a stage where we are today.
No, I was just, the reason is because you asked about the neuropharmacological drugs. I was the team leader for the epilepsy, and exactly what Partha said, it becomes so difficult sometimes. Till now, they brought the partial AUC. Before they did that, a lot of the generics, the one reason I knew about 505(b)(2) is because of the number of drugs I send on that way, because it's very, very difficult sometimes to look at, the availability, and obviously with epilepsy, it can be very dangerous, if the drug doesn't work the way it's expected to.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I just have a question about the scenario you said where you file a 505(b)(2) and then later it's deemed to be more appropriately filed as a 505(j). How does that affect your review time if that decision is made, after you file?
I know the 505(b)(2) review times is same as any NDA. Which is,
okay,
for a standard.
You paid the fee for filing 505(b)(2), and then the FDA determined that it's more appropriately reviewed as PANDA. You're still going to get the more accelerated review time.
Yeah. Go ahead. FDA is going to probably return the fees.
505(b)(2), unlike for GDUFA, you're invoiced. You're not, in GDUFA, you have to pay the fee and then you submit. It's the difference between eating in McDonald's versus a good restaurant. Because you pay and then you say, I want the burger, and they give you, whereas in a restaurant you eat, then they give you the bill. So With the B2 being an NDA pathway is the same way it's involved. And what happens is if, as Partha was saying, say suppose there is a tablet and you submit ODT. However, there are other company who has submitted before you, you probably may not have a way of knowing, but prior to your approval, this one gets approved. So technically you're a generic, but they will continue the review. It's not like they will throw it, you know, halfway to OGD. They will complete the review, and after it's completed, it will be sent to OGD, and then, you know, the fee situation.
So I think your question is if it happens within the review time. During the review time, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I just was curious.
Actually, I don't know the answer.
No, they will finish
They will finish the review,
they
I
will
know.
finish the review.
They're both B2s as long as it's submitted before the other one is approved, submitted and accepted.
Right.
That's right.
But as soon as it gets approved, it becomes, they will throw it to OGD. They will, that is what becomes a very, it becomes a very, you know.
Except you have a reference to the new.
Yeah, because it's already approved.
Yeah, so.
Now, chances of that happening sometimes can be very rare that,
I mean,
you know, same dosage, same
It happens with
exactly.
the DESI drugs.
Yeah,
That's
no,
right.
DESI drugs are completely out, yeah. They, you know, they become rated as 80s and
Right, but they can both be approved through the B2
B2,
pathway.
yeah, and,
Okay.
yeah, but then they get the 80. No, I'm not talking about a DESI, I'm talking about, say, as we just say, it could happen. However, it's a little unusual that you'll have exactly the same dosage and same kind of product. There could be some difference. People have the intelligence and try to go and make a little difference here and there. But if you do, and they tell you that if you are, if you ask the question, they will tell you that if anything gets approved before, we complete the review, but eventually it will be considered an NDA. So if you are looking for an exclusivity, you're not going to get it.
Excellent presentations, thank you. My name is Panos Konstantinidis from Biopharmaceutical and Drug Delivery Consulting. I have been involved with several 505(b)(2) filings, and I'd like to discuss with you and share with the group here a couple of gray areas. The first one is a reference to the API modifications, and more specifically, I'd like to discuss non-covalent modifications of the API through complex formation, let's say an excipient in the formulation to stabilize the drug, or the whole area of co-crystals,
I
which,
was
as you
just
know,
thinking of that, yeah.
as you know, within the FDA, it's still debatable, but also outside. FDA, I think, has defined co-crystals
That's
as intermediates of the drug product. So that's the first area I want to discuss. And the second one, in reference to novel excipients, we have two cases here. Use of an approved excipient for another route of administration. Let's say take an oral excipient and use it for injectable administration. And of course, a brand new excipient, which has never been approved before, where the pathway is very clear. You have to do the tox studies along with the API in order to support the filing. So I'd like to hear your views on both these, on both areas, please, and any experience you may have. Thank you.
It's strange that you asked about co-crystal. Being the one who established the DMF API division, I had to go through that because the whole question rose. And till now, they are considering co-crystals as intermediates, not as new APIs. So if you make a co-crystal of your material, then it is, you can qualify it as a generic. Now, you are right that there is a lot of argument. USP actually fought tooth and nail against it, but that was the decision, and I think they will stick to it, that co-crystals will not be considered as new API. And regarding the other one was about
Complex formation.
Complex formation. Now, in a few cases we have seen, depending on the kind of complex formation, non-covalent, we have still, in fact, we had while Partha was talking about oncology, we have had situation where we did go to, new drug with 505(b)(2), where basically the drug was complexing and the result of which was better availability. So technically it was just not a complex, it was also lower dosage form because now it was the site-specific delivery. But what you have to show is that the API, you have to give very clear evidence that it's a complex, through to show it. So that's one of the issues. And excipients, in fact, one of the examples we had there regarding the thin film, we also, one of the situation there was also that the company was using a completely new excipient, which triggered the non-clinical studies. So FDA is very, very, cautious about excipients, because one thing is that, the market is very diverse. You never know what can be passed as what, especially like what you say, topical excipient becoming a IV related. I mean, it's a huge change. You're
Sure.
like literally putting it into your bloodstream. So you will need to do as much work as if it's a new excipient for all purposes.
But for oral to IV, I think that because I have been involved actually in a particular drug program.
That also, animal studies will definitely be called for.
Yes.
Yes.
Going back to the complex formation, currently working on a case, injectable case. So it's not limited to the oral. The drug may be unstable in solution. Lyophilized obviously forms the way to go. But before you reach that stage, you have to make the bulk solution. So unless you stabilize the drug in the bulk solution, you will not be able to go to the
Right.
finished dosage form. So have you dealt with these cases, again, for parenteral administration, the drug in
As you
unstable?
saw, I was,
Yeah.
I think I repeatedly mentioned that kind of a situation.
Interaction
So-
with the excipient, one of the excipients in the formulation.
Right,
to
I mean,
stabilize the drug.
it will depend on how well you can establish that this is a new API, or this is a different API than what is being given. But again, remember that for generic, it has to be Q1, Q2. So if you have added an excipient which is not in the RLD, the reference listed drug, you have already gone out of the generic realm. I think your gentleman behind, yes.
Is this pathway an option for, say, filing a active enantiomer of a racemate that you don't own?
Yes,
Yes.
actually,
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
we have a lot of-
I'm
yeah.
surprised we didn't talk about that yet.
Yeah, yes, I
How
mean,
about a new polymer? A compound?
No, polymorphs are, again, there is a guidance, polymorphs are generic. So we consider different polymorph,
Different format?
as long as it's bioavailable. The famous case of retinofir which are public domain, where there is a polymorph which absolutely is not bioavailable, and that's actually the stable polymorph. So what happened is they were having the metastable polymorph, and then somehow when they started the commercial, there was some production, there was a seeding, and they could not get the metastable. It was constantly coming to that bioequivalent stable polymorph. But as long as it's bioequivalent.
Probably know a lot about that.
Yeah, I do.
Probably have it, FD.
Oh, of course, so I'm not going to go there.
Resolved with reformulation.
Yes, I know. I was there in FDA when that happened. We had so many seminars on that, to understand polymorph and its impact.
any other?
Any other questions? Good, well, thanks for coming. You can talk to our speakers a little afterwards. In about 10 minutes, I'll give a mini tour of our factory if anyone's interested. So seek me out, and thanks for coming, and we'll see you later. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.